The TPACK Framework.
The TPACK Framework was introduced by Punya Mishra and Matthew J. Cooler of Michigan State University in 2006.
The Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge Framework outlines the type of knowledge that instructor will need to successfully integrate technology into their classroom. It implies that teachers should be aware of the connection between technology, pedagogy, and materials. The TPACK framework, as well as specific technological tools such as hardware, software, and applications, as well as associated information literacy practices, are the greatest way to teach and guide students toward a better and more thorough grasp of subject matter. There are three types of knowledge: the PK, CK, and TK. So PK, or pedagogical knowledge, requires an understanding of where students are coming from in difference to the subject being taught. It refers to a teacher's specialized expertise that allows them to create effective teaching and learning setting for all pupils. CK, on the other hand, or content knowledge, defined as the body of knowledge, facts, theories, concept, ideas, language the teacher need to master in order to be effective. Teachers should have a thorough understanding of the subject they teach and the curriculum that goes with it. And lastly, the TK, technological knowledge. This describes teachers' knowledge and ability to use various technologies, technological tools, and associated resources. So the PK, CK, and TK are thus combined and recombined in various ways within the TPACK framework. Technological pedagogical knowledge, or TPK, describe the relationship and interactions between technological tools and specific pedagogical practices. Pedagogical content knowledge, or PCK, on the other hand, describe the same between pedagogical practices and specific learning objectives, while the technological content knowledge, or TCK, describe the same between technologies and learning objectives. These three categories are then combined to form TPACK, which takes into account the connections between them all and recognize that educators are working in complicated environment. What is the difference between TPACK model and SAMR model? Both models are really valuable. The TPACK model emphasizes the knowledge required to successfully integrate technology, whereas the SAMR model emphasizes what meaningful technology integration entails. If someone asked to decide between the two models, the majority would choose the SAMR, since it is the most simple to comprehend. The model's illustrations are simple to understand, and there are numerous examples of technological integration at each level. The SAMR model also considers what constitutes meaningful technological integration. This is not addressed in the TPACK model. The TPACK model simply lays out what instructor needs to know in order to understand how to incorporate technology into their classroom. The SAMR model also encourages teachers to teach above the line. It can be used to assess the value of technology in the classroom. If a teacher wants to use technological tools, they can use the SAMR model to assess whether or not the tools is modifying or redefining the task and making the learning experience more meaningful.
Why is TPACK important? So TPACK is important because it shows us that there is a relationship between technology, content, and pedagogy, and the purposeful blending of them is the key. Another is TPACK can be a helpful mantra urging you to step back and look at your whole strategy and the nuanced connection between all of its moving parts. Another is TPACK enables or enhances teachers' candidates' ability to use technology in their learning and later in their professions. It also paves the way for educators to engage students in collaborative learning and to develop the concept of digital pedagogies. So digital pedagogies may be the concept that can encompasses all teaching approach, students' attitudes, and desired learning outcomes. Another importance of TPACK is it is an essential part of the education system today as it incorporates the growing demand on the use of technology in the classroom as well as continuing the focus on the content and how we teach it. Therefore, it's a set up education for the future as well as setting up the students for their future. So TPACK enables teachers to be completely up to date and knowledgeable with the curriculum and the components of TPACK to effectively incorporates into their lessons. So in 21st century, TPACK is important because it connects three important points on education and makes them understandable by visualizing them with a mental framework. It also addresses the needs and expectations of the students more comprehensively and directly. It plays a role in sharing ideas, communication, and providing a common language. It provides teachers a chance to develop professional development and competence. It is also useful for lessons to be more interactive and student-centered. It provides also support in covering 21st century skills. Next, we have the importance of TPACK to teachers. So as previously noted, TPACK is essential to enabling teachers to implement ICT in their teaching, as it enables teachers to select and use hardware and software, identify the affordances or specific features, and use the tools in pedagogically appropriate and effective ways. Also, TPACK helps teachers consider how their knowledge domains intersect in order to effectively teach and engage students with technology.
An example of how to incorporate the TPACK framework in your classroom. Now that you know what the TPACK framework is and why it's important, let's look at how it can be applied in the classroom. So here's the example of how you can use your technological, pedagogical, content knowledge to enhance a lesson. So here's the original lesson plan. Imagine you are a 7th grade life sciences teacher. The topic is cell anatomy. Your objectives are to describe the anatomy of animal cells and explain how the organelles work as a system to carry out the necessary functions of the cell. The traditional strategies or activities might go as follows. Number 1, walk through the cell's anatomy and the basic functions of each organelle, referencing the diagram in the textbook. Number 2, break the class into small groups. Task each group with labeling their own diagram of cell anatomy and researching a single process to present to the class later on. You may want to choose the process for them to avoid duplicate presentations. And lastly, have each group present the cell process they researched to the class. Okay, so how the TPACK framework might be used to enhance this lesson? So, by applying technological, pedagogical content knowledge to your lesson. So, we'll talk about first the content knowledge. What is content knowledge? Content knowledge refers to the body of knowledge, facts, theories, principles, ideas, vocabulary, which teachers must master to be effective. Teachers should have a deep understanding of the subject they teach and corresponding curriculum. So when we say content knowledge, it is all about what are you teaching and what is your own knowledge of the subject. For this lesson, you'll need a solid understanding of cell anatomy and processes. So let's move on to the next knowledge, which is the pedagogical knowledge. So pedagogical knowledge is the specialized knowledge for teachers for creating effective teaching and learning environments for all students. So meaning, it is how your students learn best and what instructional strategies you need to meet their needs and the requirements of the lesson plan. So in this case, you'll need to understand best practices for teaching middle school science and small group collaboration. And the last knowledge to enhance the lesson is the technological knowledge. Technological knowledge describes teachers' knowledge of and ability to use various technologies, technological tools, and associated resources. So, what digital tools are available to you? Which do you know well enough to use, and which would be most appropriate for the lesson at hand? So for this lesson, students will need to label a diagram and present, so the ability to fill in blanks with an answer key, find images from the internet, create slides, and etc. are important.
Now that you've taken stock of your primary forms of knowledge, focus on where they intersect. While the ultimate goal is to be viewing your lesson and strategy through the lens of TPACK, or the center of the model where all primary forms of knowledge blend together. Taking a moment to consider the individual relationships can be helpful. Pedagogical Content Knowledge, or PCK. Understanding the best practices for teaching specific content to your specific students. Pedagogical content knowledge plays an important role in the teaching and learning process because it involves teachers' competences in delivering the conceptual approach, relational understanding, and adaptive reasoning of the subject matter. Technological content knowledge, or TCK. It is knowing how the digital tools available to you can enhance or transform the content, how it's delivered to students, and how your students can interact with it. Technological content knowledge is a framework that describes the knowledge required by teachers to represent material using technology. Technological pedagogical knowledge, or TPK. Understanding how to use your digital tools as a vehicle to the learning outcomes and experiences you want. Technological pedagogical knowledge, or TPK, describes the relationships and interactions between technological tools and specific pedagogical practices. Now, let's weave all this technological pedagogical content knowledge, or TPACK, together and enhance the activities of our original lesson plan. The ideas below are examples of activities that can be added to the original list. Remember, the goal is to be purposeful in applying each form of knowledge. First, after walking through the different parts of a cell's anatomy, break your students into small groups and have them collaborate on completing a check for understanding quiz via your LMS. Include an interactive question that provides a diagram of a cell with blank labels and requires students to drag and drop the proper labels in place from an answer key. Second, give each group a device with recording capabilities. Have each member of the group choose an organelle to personify and have them record each other explaining who they are and why they are important for the cell. Finally, have them upload their videos to a media album so your students can watch each other's videos on their own time and leave comments. Third, instead of researching a cell process in one type of cell, have your students compare the process between animal and plant cells and make conclusions regarding differences they find. Require each group to construct an artifact of their research by creating a one-page brief in Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive, a flowchart comparison, or a video explanation. This can be turned in via an assignment in your LMS for credit. Lastly, armed with their knowledge of cell anatomy, function, and processes, have your students analyze the connections between different animals and plants in natural habitats. Have each group infer what might happen when one animal or plant is placed in a habitat other than its natural one. Each group should compile evidence to make this case, using Padlet, Evernote, or other similar tool. Broad benefits of the TPACK framework. You don't have to go all in with TPACK to gain something from it. Whether you apply it to every lesson or revisit it from time to time, this framework can help you think more strategically about how you're using technology in the classroom. You may be surprised at what your lessons and strategies can become through the meticulously thoughtful lens of the TPACK framework.